Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, where real stories hit harder than fiction ever could. I didn't recognize myself until I saw my reflection in the airport window. I was just sitting there, gate D6, delayed flight to Minneapolis, holding a half-warm coffee in one hand and a stale croissant in the other. When I looked up, and for a second, I thought someone was staring at me from the other side of the glass. But it was me. Same eyes, different man. 9 years had burned through me like acid. I don't just mean age or wrinkles, I mean something deeper. The kind of erosion that doesn't show up in selfies but lives in the way you flinch when someone laughs too loud behind you. The way you hesitate before trusting anyone who says they love you. Back then, I was soft. I used to believe in giving second chances, in talking things through, in working on it, in forgiveness. All the things they tell you in therapy and rom-coms. I believed in all of that, right up until the moment she left. She didn't leave me like people usually leave. There was no screaming fight, no suitcase dragged down the stairs, no slammed door echoing in the hallway. She left on a Wednesday, that's all I remember. She left without saying goodbye, without leaving a note, without taking the ring. She left with a flight ticket, a silent phone, and a stranger she met at some work event in Chicago. And she took everything else. My name is Emery, not a strong name. Not a name that you put on a football jersey or shout across a battlefield. It's the kind of name you use for a guy who folds his clothes neatly, pays every bill early, and apologizes when someone else bumps into him. That's who I was. I was the man who helped her build a photography studio from the ground up. I was the guy who took out a personal loan to cover her studio rent when she forgot to invoice a client. I was the one who drove her to exhibitions, stayed up editing slideshows for her portfolio, and memorized every brand of camera lens so I could sound supportive. And I was the fool who didn't notice when she stopped looking at me during dinner, or when she stopped correcting people who called her single at gallery openings, or when she stopped wearing her ring, claiming it gave her a rash. The day she vanished, I was at work, 12 hours on my feet at the warehouse. I got home, and the keys didn't fit. The lock had been changed. My name, which used to be on the lease, had been scrubbed from the mailbox. I tried calling her. She had blocked me, everywhere. Email, phone, Instagram, even Venmo. I didn't even know you could block someone on Venmo. She disappeared into thin air like I'd been part of a season she wanted to forget. And now, here I was, 9 years later, looking into the glass at a version of myself I no longer recognized when the intercom crackled. Final boarding call for Flight 214 to San Diego. Final boarding. And then I saw her, across the terminal, right by gate D4. Same face, same eyes, different hair. Different man standing beside her, holding her hand like I used to. She hadn't seen me yet. But when she did, her mouth opened just slightly. Her fingers slipped from the man's hand. And for one suspended moment, it was like the terminal froze. 9 years later, and I was the ghost she never expected to see again. She didn't blink. She just stood there, lips parted slightly, like she'd seen a ghost rise up from the middle of her perfect little life. The man beside her, tall, clean-shaven, expensive haircut, noticed her reaction and followed her gaze. I could tell from the way he furrowed his brows that he didn't recognize me, but she did. Every inch of her did. And I wanted her to feel every mile of the distance between us. I didn't stop walking. I didn't nod, wave, or pause for dramatic effect. I just kept walking with my duffel bag slung over my shoulder and that same cheap coffee sloshing against the lid. My gate was in the opposite direction, but I circled around the terminal on purpose, gave her enough time to process what just hit her like a brick wall. Because here's the thing, I never got to watch her realize what she'd done. I never got to see the guilt bloom in her face or the panic crawl up her throat. She robbed me of that, took the coward's exit, burned the bridge, then blocked the road. But fate finally handed me the moment I was owed, and I was going to savor it. By the time I returned near her gate, pretending to check the departures board, she was sitting alone. Her partner, or husband, I don't know, was gone, maybe grabbing coffee, maybe still asking who the hell I was. She looked smaller than I remembered, not physically. No, she still had that same polished presence. But the confidence was cracked. The shield she used to wear so well, I could see right through it. I sat across from her, Not directly, that would have been theatrical. I chose the row behind a pillar where I could see her without being obvious. She looked down at her phone, but her fingers didn't move, just held it. Blank screen, white knuckles. And then, as if drawn by something she couldn't control, her eyes scanned the terminal, looking for me. She found me. And I smiled, just slightly. Just enough for her to know that I knew, that I remembered, that I wasn't broken anymore, that the man she left in pieces had put himself back together, but not in the way she expected. This wasn't revenge. I wasn't here to scream or beg or even explain. I was just here, real, alive, unreachable. She mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I could guess. I stood up, took a step forward, and no, not yet. Let her sit in that discomfort a little longer. Let her wonder if I'll walk over. Let her regret not picking a different gate, a different flight, a different life. I turned and walked away again, and behind me I could almost feel the sound of her world starting to crack. I thought walking away would be enough. It wasn't. Because 5 minutes later, I heard it, those hurried footsteps behind me. They weren't loud, but I felt them. It's strange how your body remembers someone even after your soul forgets. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking through the terminal, passing vending machines, fast food counters, digital signs flashing delays and gate changes. Then I heard her voice. "Emery?" It landed like a stone skipping across a quiet lake. I hadn't heard her say my name in almost a decade, but she said it the same way she used to, with the slight tilt upward at the end, like it was a question, like she wasn't sure if I'd still answer. I didn't stop right away. I kept walking for another 10 steps before turning around slowly, like someone who wasn't in a hurry to revisit the ruins of an old life. There she was. Closer now, eyes searching. Her mouth opened, then closed again. I could see the confusion, the disbelief, the scramble in her mind to figure out how I could possibly look at her like she was just another traveler in a busy terminal. "Is that really you?" she asked. I nodded, calm. "Yeah, it's me." She looked me over like I was a painting she hadn't seen in years. Familiar brushstrokes, but something in the frame had changed. "You look different." I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because I remembered the last time she saw me, I was begging her to stay, crying on the living room floor after she disappeared, trying to text her from burner phones, sending emails she never opened. I had turned into a ghost chasing shadows. And now, here she was, trying to catch a glimpse of the man she left in pieces. "You look exactly the same," I said flatly. She blinked, unsure what to do with that. "Why are you here?" she asked, like I was the one intruding on her carefully curated life. "I travel for work now," I answered, keeping it short. I didn't owe her anything more, but she wasn't ready to let it go. "Do you live here?" "In Denver?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "I live wherever I want now." It was subtle, but I saw her flinch. That answer, so unlike the version of me she remembered, shook her a little. She opened her mouth again, but this time her voice dropped lower. "Can we talk?" I shook my head. "Too late for that, Belle." She hadn't expected that, and in that moment, I saw it. The exact second she realized she no longer had a hold on me, not even a sliver, and that terrified her more than anything else ever could. I turned and walked toward my gate. She didn't follow. I didn't turn around as I walked. I could feel her standing there, though, caught between regret and some desperate hope that maybe I'd stop again. But I didn't. I had learned the hard way that closure is a luxury you only earn when the other person respects your ending. She never gave me mine, so why on earth should I give her hers? At my gate, I sat by the window and stared at the tarmac, pretending to care about a plane that hadn't even started boarding yet. My coffee had gone cold in my hand. I took a sip anyway, not because I wanted to, but because it gave me something to do with my fingers. My mind, on the other hand, was miles away. 9 years ago, I would have done anything to see her again. I would have paid every dollar I had just to hear her voice say one honest thing. And now, here she was, a few gates away. And all I could think was how disturbingly easy it had become not to care, not to ask, not to need answers. That scared me a little. Because if you can stop caring about someone you once built your world around, what does that say about the world you built? Then I noticed something, a reflection in the window. I angled my eyes without moving my head. There she was, across from me. Not in the seating area, but standing just outside the coffee shop near my gate, alone, her partner nowhere in sight, pretending to check her phone, but I could tell. She wasn't texting, she was watching me, studying me, like I had become the unsolvable equation in a life she thought she had figured out. A gate agent announced final boarding for her flight. She didn't move, not at first. She just stood there like a statue with a storm behind her eyes. Then, slowly, she turned and walked away. But not toward her gate, toward the restroom corridor. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. 5 minutes later, her flight took off. I watched the plane taxi rise and disappear into the clouds. I don't know if she was on it. I don't know if she told that man beside her anything. But I do know this. I had no desire to find out. Because whatever chapter she thought she could reopen between us had already been rewritten. And this time, I held the pen. The plane was gone, swallowed up in the gray afternoon sky, and yet my pulse hadn't slowed. I thought it would. I thought once I saw her disappear through that jet bridge, something inside me would finally settle. The unfinished pages of our past catching fire mid-air, burning up over the Rockies. But instead, there was something else. A weight, not grief, not longing. Something colder, like a stillness that sets in after a storm's passed. But the damage hasn't been assessed yet. I reached into my coat pocket without thinking. My fingers brushed against the edge of the envelope I'd shoved there earlier that morning. I hadn't planned on bringing it. I almost left it at the hotel. But some gut instinct told me to carry it. Not for her, for me. Inside was a letter, not handwritten, typed, clean, blunt. No dramatic metaphors, just facts. I had written it 2 months ago and sealed it without signing my name. In it, I laid out everything she'd done, the hidden debt she racked up in my name after she left, the studio lease she abandoned that tanked my credit, and the texts I found after the fact, archived by her cloud account, which, in her brilliance, she forgot to log out of on my old laptop. I had screenshots, receipts, a full, clean timeline of betrayal. I never sent it. I didn't need revenge, but I needed the truth to live somewhere outside my chest. And for the first time in nearly a decade, I wondered what would have happened if I'd walked up to her before that flight, handed it to her, no words, just the envelope. Would she have read it? Would it have changed anything? Probably not. Some people aren't wired to feel guilt in ways that matter. I stood and slid the envelope deeper into my coat, then walked out of the terminal into the brittle cold. The air bit at my skin, harsh, honest. It reminded me I was alive, free, that my story didn't belong to her anymore. But that should have been the end. I should have gotten on my flight, gone home, let that encounter fade like background noise. But 2 days later, I got a message request from an unknown number, no name, no subject, just 3 words. You didn't change. And just like that, the silence cracked open again. I stared at the message longer than I should have. Just those 3 words, sitting there on the screen like they meant something. You didn't change, no punctuation, no context. But the weight behind it was familiar. It was the kind of thing Maribel would say when she couldn't stand that I still had a spine, even when I was on my knees for her. It wasn't a compliment. It was a warning. I didn't reply. I let it sit for a few hours, watching the little scene icon flicker and vanish. If she was waiting for a reaction, she'd wait a long time. I had nothing left to prove, but still, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't done. People like her never are. When you no longer serve their story, they try to rewrite you into the villain. Or, worse, the fool who still wants closure. Later that evening, I got another message. This time from a different number, local area code, just a photo, blurry, taken from behind a pillar in the airport terminal. Me, sitting by the window, coffee in hand, and just visible in the corner. Her. She'd taken a picture of me before I saw her. I wasn't angry, not exactly. It was something else, something murkier, like the violation of knowing someone had been documenting a moment you didn't agree to share. She hadn't sent it to intimidate me, I could tell. No, she sent it to remind me that our story, at least in her head, wasn't over. I blocked both numbers. The next morning, I found an email. Burner address. Subject line, you looked peaceful. Inside was nothing but a Dropbox link. I didn't click it. I forwarded it to a blank folder labeled Archive Do Not Open, just in case. But it made me realize something that chilled me deeper than any of the messages. She wasn't trying to reconnect. She was trying to stir up the version of me that still needed her. The weak version. The confused version. The man she could gaslight into thinking that disappearing without warning was self-care, that gutting someone's life was healing. That betrayal could be poetic if it was done in the name of finding yourself. But I wasn't that man anymore. I was quiet. I was calm. But I wasn't hers. And maybe that was what scared her most. I lasted 5 days. 5 days of pretending the link didn't exist. 5 days of focusing on work, eating dinners I couldn't taste, scrolling past anything that looked remotely like closure wrapped in digital bait. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it constantly. What was in that folder? A letter? A confession? Something she hoped I'd see? Or something she needed me to? It was curiosity, not weakness, that finally made me click. I opened the folder from a library computer 3 towns over. Didn't want any trace of it on my personal devices, just in case. What I found inside wasn't what I expected. There were no apologies, no long-winded explanations, just 5 files, 4 photos, 1 video. The photos were of me, 1 from the airport, 2 from a parking garage, clearly taken from a distance, and 1 from across the street outside my apartment. The timestamps told me they'd been taken over the last year. The realization hit hard. She'd been tracking me long before the airport. The video was less than 30 seconds. I clicked play. It was a recording from inside a car. Her voice, shaky, whispering, "I don't know why I'm doing this. I just need to see if he's okay. I know he hates me. I know I deserve it. But I need to see him breathing, just once. Just to know I didn't ruin him completely." Then silence. Then the camera panned. Across the parking lot. Toward me. Loading groceries into my car. Smiling at the cashier walking by. Then it cut off. No face reveal. No dramatic zoom. Just darkness. I sat there frozen. Not from emotion, from confusion. Because for the first time since she left, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel the urge to scream. I just felt strange, not seen, not violated, but studied, like I had become a monument to her regret. And that disturbed me more than anything else ever could. Because regret has gravity, and I could feel it pulling her back toward me. It happened on a Thursday, same day of the week she vanished all those years ago. Poetic, in the cruelest sense. I was coming home from work, arms full of groceries, when I saw the car parked across the street. Black SUV, engine off, windows tinted just enough to make me guess. I didn't need to. I already knew. I took my time unloading, let her sit with the weight of the moment. When I finally turned to walk to my building, the door opened. She stepped out slowly. No dramatic entrance, no big reveal, just her, in a worn coat, looking smaller than I remembered, like the years had finally caught up with her. "I just wanted to talk," she said quietly, but I didn't answer. I looked her in the eyes, not with anger, not even with pity, just peace. And that, I think, shook her more than anything I could have said. I wasn't her unfinished story anymore. I was someone who had outgrown the ending she left me with. "You came all this way," I said, "but there's nothing left for you here." She looked down. "I thought maybe after the video." "You thought wrong." I smiled, not to mock her, but because I meant it. I wasn't bitter anymore. I had forgiven her long ago, not for her sake, but for mine, because the man she left behind didn't exist anymore. I had rebuilt myself from the ground up, not harder, not colder, just whole. Quietly, steadily, without her. She nodded, eyes glassy, but said nothing else. She didn't beg, didn't explain. She just walked back to her car, and for the first time in 9 years, she drove away without taking anything from me. I stepped inside my apartment, placed the groceries down, and exhaled. Not because she was gone, but because I was finally free. Not from her, but from the version of me who waited for her return. Thanks for watching this story unfold here on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever had someone from your past try to step back into your life, after everything, tell us how you handled it in the comments. And while you're at it, drop one of the most unexpected events from history that still blows your mind. We love hearing those too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us for more unforgettable stories. Until next time, stay true to yourself.